Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is an audio that's going to go in three separate videos, one on the Gratefullness meditation, one for the Journey series, and then this one here, the video that's going to go up today, Saturday, July 26th, and the video that'll be up tomorrow on Sunday. So the first thing that I want to say, this is this gathering I just went through, and it just, not went through as a bad thing, but had the blessing to experience. I come out with a different outlook on whatever's going on in my life and the world or whatever. This spiritual gathering, this was the best one that we've done with Gratefullness meditation. And, I had this, the first thing I want to talk about is there is movements within the human system, movements, good movements, bad movements, right? I don't want to say bowel movements, but this is kind of what this one is. It's, there's things that you can give you insight to why a system's going south or why a system's flourishing, why something's being successful, why something's failing. And in terms of the American culture and the global culture, there is something on both sides of a binary system in America. The Democrats and the Republicans that would indicate that your system is fucked. And so very few people will be able to hear it because of the implications to themselves, right? But let's start off with Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, when he ran for president, he was already a piece of shit. Like, people knew he was a piece of shit. He had run for president 3 times before. Nobody wanted the guy because he was such a piece of shit politician. And just from what people knew about him, like, the way he talked, like, he was like insincere. Nobody liked the guy, right? I mean, he had people who liked him, but not they didn't think him as presidential. He got caught plagiarizing people's life stories. He turned other people's life stories into his own when he ran for president the first time. And, like, it isn't just that he got caught lying. He got caught stealing other people's life stories without any sense of, like, that was fucking wrong. And that if he got caught, it would be like, death knell to his candidacy. So this is back in the 80s when shit like this mattered. Because now it wouldn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. But he got caught doing that shit. And the obliviousness that he showed to doing something like that and thinking that he might not get caught and not even really probably consciously aware that he was just lifting life stories from people. Like, stories about, like, the things that didn't even add up with his life, right? Because, they had one of the things was happened was like a British politician that he, kind of morphed into his, so, he was lifted these things word for word, verbatim in speeches. He did this throughout his career. And then he got caught, and it was like, all right, you're not going to be able to be president. And he ran again and again, and nobody wanted him after that. Not just because of plagiarism, or not even, plagiarism didn't even play a role. But then they ran him, and he was obviously having dementia. I pointed it out, and lots of people saw it in one way or another. And he was a guy who was a groper, and the way he treated those women and kids when they were doing the swearing-in ceremonies, like, the guy was an absolute piece of shit. And the liberal media and the Democrats ignored all of that, right? Like, they ignored all the things, the fact that they were gaslighting everybody. And it was their job within the system, not only their job, but a voter's job. Like, all the Democratic people, all the people who voted for him, all the people that backed him because they hated Trump or whatever, that it was their job to think about something beyond their own personal agenda and their own party and their own politics and their own belief system, and do what's right. Like, you see a guy in your party who's a piece of shit and is going against and destroying America, you're supposed to stand up for it. Like, if America stands for something and there is some level of truth, like, you're supposed to be a whistleblower. There's supposed to be, checks and balances where within your own party, if somebody fucking goes south, and not because it's going to politically help you, not because there's some advantage, that you're going to be like, you're going to stand up because it's your job. You're part of the system of checks and balances. It's your job to go and to do that, right? And so with the Republicans, and we've seen now with Trump, he's doing things like there's these 3 people he fired, and they're suing him because they're saying he's firing them for political reasons. Like, of course he is, right? And of course, the Democrats did things like this. They went after the what Joe Biden called the MAGA Trumpers, and now Trump is doing it like on steroids because he always goes over the top with his side. But Trump is doing things, and they violate all kinds of different, not just the Constitution, but laws and morality and ethics. And he expects everyone to knuckle under, and the whole Republican Party is. Fox News is not pushing back, and here's the people. We have now with the Epstein thing, you have some people pushing back, but after it's too late, because it was obvious what this guy was, this first term, and then between the first term, the last 10 years, and they all went along with it, right, knowing that he would be detrimental to the system. Trump is anti-constitutionalist. He's anti-patriot. He's anti-America. He's anti all those things. He's even anti the past, make America great again, because he's a dictator. He's, all these things. And the bigger point is that I can understand personally why you have to sacrifice the individual for the whole, the good of the collective, right? Like, we all understand that. Like, there's times where an individual has to be sacrificed, or a movement of people have to be sacrificed for the good of the system, right? I say it all the time. I understand why the truth community and the spiritual community, and again, there's no spiritual community, but people who are connecting to the divinity within them, I understand why both of those 2 groups have to be sacrificed for the American system to keep on moving forward. People who want to tell the truth in a system that is predicated on deception have to be sacrificed, have to be ostracized, have to be, whatever that thing, as I said, I work for an algorithm that's changed, right? Algorithm workers that changes, that makes you unemployed, right? The algorithm that's rigged against all of us in the truth community, and people in the spiritual community don't have to be rigged against, because people don't want to hear that shit, right? People who don't want to hear about divinity within them and, changing themselves. No one wants to hear that. So, but the system will ostracize you, and people will ostracize you when they realize you're a threat to the system that's that they're 100% dependent on, or dependent on in any way, shape, or form. The system just identifies you as a threat. It doesn't need AI. It doesn't need, there's ways that they can prejudice against you with the algorithms and the AI, but it's the system itself. And so I understand why all of us in the truth community and people who are understanding the true spiritual nature of humanity and its true spiritual purposes are going to be prejudiced against by a system that's demonic in nature. And by being demonic, it has to be deceptive, because a demon is an ego that runs amok. It's an ego that thwarts the will of God. And so it goes against the truth. God's the truth. The divine plan is the truth. And being demonic means you're going against that. And so once you have a system that's demonic, then anybody who represents anything that's coming close to the truth has to be, excised out. It can't exist, because the system is predicated on deception. And so people who are speaking the truth and groups of people who are speaking the truth have to be prejudiced against. So I understand that. I understand that. It's what I'm going through with my YouTube channel, my slowly dying YouTube channel, and then my talking about spirituality, which is something that, each person's individual ego is working against. And then you have religions and materialism that is doing its best to keeping people from realizing their divine nature, because it, goes against the life of the system and the life of the ego. The ego feels it's going to be extinguished, and the system itself would be extinguished if people were no longer materialistic and consumer oriented, but were pursuing their divine nature. And so both these things are true, right? But you have a situation where in a binary us versus them, good versus we're good, they're evil versus system orientation, a system orientated in that way. The left and the right, and the Dems and the Republicans, and this whole binary conflict oriented system, divide and conquer system. There gets to be a point where they have crossed the line, and both sides are like, I don't care how wrong our leaders are. I don't care how wrong Trump is. I don't care how fucked up Biden is. We're going to pretend that they're great and push through, even we know it's destroying the system. That it's the snake eating its own tail type of situation. And that they're going to back him no matter what. And they're going to, the powers that be are going to back him. And so that's what we have right now. Like, you can see it. That they're like openly lying. We'll get into this in a moment. I have these video clips to show you. I already made some video clips yesterday. I have a few more to add to it. But they're openly lying to the American people and themselves and everything else when they know what they're doing is wrong. Willfully doing things that you know to be wrong. And that's your job to speak up about it, and you don't. And so that supersedes, they want to make conspiracy theorists that, even Trump was talking about, crazy conspiracy theorists. I think I have that clip coming up, where he uses that term, right? So, like fucking what, So if I don't have it, he does. If I do, I'll show you in terms of my main video. But, so this is where we are as a species, right? We're where the people who are in power are willfully destroying the system because of their myopic belief in their point of view and their side. And it doesn't mean that they believe in it in a way like they believe the bullshit they're saying. They believe in their power. They believe in their side having the power and the other side not having the power. Even if they're aware, like they're players or actors being controlled and they know that it's all bullshit, they're still pushing a disastrous agenda on both sides, which we saw with Biden and we see with Trump. And it's been like this for a while, but it's just gotten worse to the point where it crosses a line, right, where people should say, well, my God, Joe Biden's senile. Come on, can't you guys see it? Like Democrats and media people should have said it. They did not wait till they were told they could. Like Jake Tapper, people like that who jumped on a bandwagon that everybody else who, who was talking the truth saw it in 2019, that the guy was gone mentally. And he was a piece of shit before that. He was like unpresidential. And then with Trump, like there's lots of people in the Republican Party that have knuckled under to him because he has a bunch of dumb fuck people who are supporting him. And so like this is where we're at as people, right? So the other part is, so this gathering ended, we have these 6 meditations. And the 5th meditation, I was really restless. Like usually there's these cleaning sittings where there'll be, discomfort and things being pulled out of you. But I felt like something removed, like something, unpleasant removed. It was the least blissful sitting of the meditations were all really blissful. And I feel like it just, it takes you to it takes you to heaven, right? You're like, you experience heaven and then you have to come back to the earthly plane of existence. And you're like, it takes a while before you just want to go back and deal with mundane shit, right? So I've been able to sort of detach myself when I make the video, but I go out to the world and, I really see things and it's like, you feel how heavy and gross everything is, right? When you experience a higher level of consciousness. But the cleaning part, I'd been restless, falling asleep for about 2 weeks. And like I fell right to sleep last night. Like I just, whatever. whatever was in there that had to be cleaned out, which is a part of the great part of the Sizemore system. And then they had a really blissful last sitting, and last night I just was in this blissful state. And I had been listening to some of the audio tapes or some of the videos of the third master of the system because it was his birthday. The one master of the system I knew, of course, the guy now, Dodgy's a piece of shit fucking loser that's tried to turn it into a cult, but he's too stupid to pull it off, which I've talked about extensively in other places. And I was listening to this one audio, and it was Chargy, probably a year before he died or so. And it was talking about how when he was being trained by Babaji, the second master of the system, Babaji said in the divine world, in the spiritual realm, there's no justice. And the guy was asking him, Chargy was asking him, like, why is that? Why wouldn't there be justice in heaven, right? Like, what people would think of heaven in the etheric world. And Babaji said, because there's no duality in the divine world. There's no, if you have to have justice, you have to have injustice. There's no injustice in divinity, in the divine world. There's no wrongs committed. Everything's truth. Everything's, goes the way that it's supposed to go. It all is, based in God and divinity. People don't have, there's no one with freedom of the choice. Your soul has freedom of choice here on the material plane, but when your soul doesn't have a body and doesn't have an ego, these things that don't exist when you're not in a physical body, there's no option to do the wrong thing, and therefore, and this is stuff that I'm adding to the, the explanation. But there's no duality, there's no injustice, so there can't be justice, right? And so he said, all there is grace, divine grace. Like when you're being a spiritual person, you can find grace descending down into you, divine energy that, helps you accept the fact that you're, stuck in the world of duality, where there's, pain and pleasure, and there's, lies and truth, and there's, all these different things, right? But justice doesn't exist because there's no injustice. And so, and I've said this in different ways, that there's, there's these messages, the Whispers of the Brighter World messages, that talk about that there's a system where everything's accounted for. And so accountability is there because everything that you do, everything you think, everything you say, every impression you have has to be accounted for. Every choice that you make that goes against, there's one right choice in every situation, and that's the choice of your soul. That's the divine choice. And so anytime you deviate from that choice, there's something to, a reaction happens for that. And it's not punishment, it's not God's punishment, but it feels like that because you've done something that goes against, you've made a wrong decision. And there's consequences for your wrong decision. So often people, in the truth community, and just in general, not just in the truth community, are consumed with justice being done. This is the thing that's happening right now with Jeffrey Epstein story emerging. And the obsession with that is that the so-called elite people that are around him, and now involving Trump, but everyone else, somehow there's justice. That they have to suffer what everyone else would suffer. What people think everyone else would suffer, but people get away with shit all the time. That there's a system, an American system that is fair and just, and that everybody who commits a crime, everybody who does something wrong, suffers the same consequences as everyone else, despite your, the power that you have in these other things. But that's not true. That doesn't happen. It almost never happens. There are people who are in prison for smoking pot, and that was or whatever it might be, right? There's minor offenses, right? And then there's people who have committed murders or done things that have caused the suffering of maybe even billions of people in terms of the COVID stuff or whatever it might be. And there's never any, they never go to jail. They never seem to get, the consequences for their actions. And so people in the truth community, people in the, people just in general are obsessed with other people getting away with shit, and they're pissed about it, and they want to see them caught. People who are obsessed with justice, and people who have been wronged, abused as kids, or just whatever it is. There's lots of people that are like this. And they want the system to be fair, and it never is, because things that happen on planet Earth are of human nature, of the human system, where people choose to do the wrong thing, and there are consequences for those things, and some of those consequences won't come to a future life, maybe 3 lives from now. So you have consequences you're suffering right now from things you did 3 lives ago, and you're not consciously aware of them, right? In one of these talks, Master Chargy said that if you had consciousness of past lives, for example, so let's say a guy had 50 past lives and he was married to 50 women, 50 different women, and he met all those women in this life, but he was married to a different woman, and he had full memory of their marriage and whether they were happy or not, and kids or whatever, right? You meet people who are his kids, and so you would have these relationships. I mean, when you meet somebody who was significant in a past life, and this has happened to me a few times, you have or just even with my wife now, like we felt like we knew each other forever. And you start off from where you left off in some previous life. Like you have immediately attached, you like, this is somebody significant in your life, and you just know it, right? This is some of the evidence of past lives. And so when you have a situation where you've done things in the past that you may or may not have been held accountable, or you didn't have the spiritual consequences from whatever you did, good, bad, or indifferent, like good things, you also have consequences for those. You have these things that open up for you from things that you've done in the past. Good things that happen to you from things that you've done in the past. Rewards for behavior, whatever it is, rewards of things. And then you have things that are not, you did bad things, and you have consequences for those things. So, in a one life scenario, you're not going to have everything be fair, and there's not going to be justice. But in a spiritual realm where everybody's held accountable for everything that they do, then there'll be, future consequences, both good and bad, for whatever you're doing. And so that's the reason to, live a life where you're not Tuesday Paul isn't screwing over Friday Paul, right? Like I'm not screwing over some future version of myself. And you can see that even in this life, even if you don't believe in future lives or past lives, you can see where you do something, and you've done something in the past that screws you over in the future. And so you're making a mistake now that you're going to have to pay for later. And you're consciously doing it. Like you realize, you're rationalizing whatever you do, and then you're paying the price later on, right? You'll see like some movie where some guy borrows money from a loan shark to gamble or something, loses the bet, and then in some future version of himself, he's got no thumbs, right? So, like this kind of thing. And so there is justice, and people who are obsessed with it, it's because they're locked down to the material plane of existence, and it's most Americans at this point. Because in a binary system, everybody wants to see the people they hate, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans or some other group of people. It might be just somebody on the internet. You want to see other people suffer. You feel like they suck, and that that they are not suffering the consequences of their suckiness, and you just want to see them suffer, right? And so, like, it's a fucked up thing that people do, because you're focusing on somebody else suffering is making you suffer. Your hatred is like this, this famous saying, bitterness is like swallowing a poison pill. Resentment, bitterness, hatred is like swallowing a pill of poison and expecting your enemy to die, right? Your life is consumed by hatred, is consumed by bitterness. Some of the other great teachings of Saj Marg, that if you hate somebody, the hatred consumes you. Like you have to throw the hate out of your system, because the hate is what you feel. Feeling hate sucks. When you hate somebody, having that feeling of resentment and hate and all these things that, negative feelings suck, right? It deprives you of your happiness. Okay, so I made most of this video yesterday. I have one Chris Hayes thing. I think I called him the pie-face lesbian, and I guess that's sticking because I get these comments. I'll say something like that, and I forget all about it, and I won't read the comments maybe till, like, the video won't come up to a day after I make it. So I'll make a video on Tuesday, I'll release it on Wednesday, and then either Wednesday or Thursday I'll read the comments, and all of a sudden people are saying pie face lesbian. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? because people like that. But I'll start off with that because that came out last night, and then I have the other clips I made from yesterday. But here's let's get into that here. Okay, Saturday the 26th of July. The gathering ended yesterday, and I did everything you're going to see after this. Chris Hayes, the pie face lesbian, Chris Hayes. I'm going to show this one bit. He's got some good little parts here. And you heard the voiceover, the whole thing. And there's another voiceover I did this morning after that, which I realized I forgot something. And so that's today's video. This is the first part, which I'm doing today, and then you'll see what I did yesterday, and then a voiceover I did just a moment ago.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes, and it is a very busy Friday. NBC News has learned that Donald Trump's Justice Department offered Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, limited immunity during her conversations with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Of course, there have been all sorts of...
Todd Blanche is Trump's lawyer. He's defended Trump in the past. So he's, like Trump burns through lawyers, like Rudy Giuliani, for example. Like all those lawyers that tried to help him with the fake election ended up in jail, remember? Rudy Giuliani ended up being sued for $160 million and started hawking fucking supplements on a fucking horrible podcast, right? But his current lawyer is... he represents Trump. He works for the Attorney General, but he works for the Justice Department. But he represents Trump's interests. And so him going to talk to her is Trump's lawyer going to make sure she doesn't rat out Trump, right? Which I'm sure almost everybody can see through. Like just anybody with half a brain knows that's what's happening. Anybody knows anything about Trump. Trump is very litigious, right? Michael Cohen, his fixer, I guess he's sounding off on things that Trump told him. He went to jail for Trump, right? He's got all these fucking lawyers, and he's very litigious, and he understands how to get away with shit, right?
Developments on the relationship between Trump and Epstein. Today, I've been chatting with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, regarding that relationship. Things got a little newsy, and those details are ahead. It all started last week when the Wall Street Journal published this report about that, frankly, weird message from Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein as part of a book of letters for the child sex trafficker's 50th birthday. The one with the drawing of a nude woman and Trump's scribbled name as the pubic hair? Of course,
Yeah, remember that was awesome. Remember that, you guys? That was awesome.
Trump immediately made a big show of denying he wrote the letter. There was no letter. And even if there was, he said it wasn't his words. And he never wrote a picture in his life. And he sued the Wall Street Journal, along with others, for $10 billion. Now, our Vice President, J.D. Vance, who as far as we can tell hasn't been seen in public with Trump since this stuff got so messy and spends a lot of time on Twitter, did make a statement on Twitter many, many hours after the Wall Street Journal report. Quote, "Forgive my language, but this story is complete and utter BS. The Wall Street..."
Boom. You can say it, Chris Hayes. Other people on your network say it. He said, J.D. Vance said, bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
Journal should be ashamed for publishing.
Ashamed. Shame. Everybody knows your name. They should be ashamed of themselves. I always talk about that. When people say that, how dare you, or shamed, fuck you. Don't tell me how to feel, right? I mean, like they do this to the truth community all the time. Or don't tell other people how to feel. Shame on you. Like you're some fucking great person that can fucking judge other people how they should feel about certain things. I mean, there's people that don't feel shame and don't feel embarrassment, and they should. And those people telling them shame on you, or you should be ashamed of yourself, they're sociopaths, right? Like fucking, you're wasting your breath. You're telling a sociopath to feel something they're incapable of feeling. Sociopaths don't feel things the way other people do. And so, and they don't, if they do feel it, it's buried so deep, whatever. But, how dare you?
Where is the letter? Would you be shocked to learn they never showed it to us before publishing it? Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump? Ah, yes, where is the letter? I wonder if there really even is a letter. There's the fake news at it again. Well, last night, we got some more information. You see, the New York Times published a report that Trump's name was indeed one of the many listed as contributors for that birthday book for Epstein. That reporting included this handwritten letter by Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, as something of an introduction for the book. And it also included this photograph of a different book, Trump's 1997 The Art of the Comeback, with the future president inscribed to one Jeffrey Epstein, quote to Jeff, "You are the greatest."
The greatest. He said he's a terrific guy and he's the greatest. That's not good, Trump. I wonder if your Trumpers will finally wake up to your fucking bullshit. No, they won't.
But that's not all we learned last night. The Wall Street Journal also followed up on the birthday book, revealing a bunch of other folks, apparently including letters of their own. People...
You know, can you imagine somebody making a birthday? See, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein weren't having sex. They dated at one point. You know, then she aged out. Like, she turned 22, and then they became, but they were like a couple. You know, it was said, I don't know who said it. Jeffrey Epstein said that when Trump got divorced, I guess from, was it Marla Maples? We heard this. It was a couple of videos ago. But someone reported that Jeffrey Epstein said this to them, that Ghislaine got Marla Maples, and Trump, and Jeffrey got Trump. So Trump would be at home, wouldn't go to Jeffrey Epstein's home. He would go to the offices where Jeff was, and maybe it was even Melania, I don't even know, but whatever it was, it would go to the house, right, to be with Ghislaine. Maybe it was Melania, I don't know. Whatever it is, you guys saw the video. If you did, it's a couple of videos ago. But you know, this was weird stuff. But imagine getting a book full of letters from fucking people and publishing it like you're turning 50 years old. I mean, so this is, you know, years back, right? So this is, you know, many years back. And these letters would be weird in nature and sexual and body and these things because they were about this fucking weird, like, what a greasy, like, icky thing, you know, that Ghislaine would be collecting these letters. And this book is now, I think he might talk about here, but it's in the, it exists, and Jeffrey Epstein's estate has it, and it's going to be subpoenaed, and either Trump's letter is it in it or not. And it's probably in it, right? Which, you know, that means that when Trump sues, knowing that he did write the letter, and that comes out, it's even worse for him. I mean, it's even more incriminating.
From Vera Wang to the former President Bill Clinton, who praised Epstein's, quote, childlike curiosity. Now, for what it's worth, Clinton's camp declined to comment to the Journal about that reporting.
I bet they did.
But pointed to a previous statement, the ex-president cut off all ties with Epstein before he was arrested in 2019 and knew nothing of his crimes. Now, this was an interesting development because the Trump camp, I mean, again, $10 billion lawsuit, right, has been calling this letter fake for a week now. But Trump himself is the one who first injected Epstein into the political discourse a decade ago when he tried to attack the Clintons for their ties to the disgraced financier.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy.
Nice guy.
Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.
Boom.
So I figured with these new developments, I would follow it up with J.D. Vance about his
So if Trump and Bill Clinton had an equal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, they both had an equal relationship, and there was evidence to support both of them being a part of this thing, equal amount of evidence. The story is still about Trump, because Trump dominates the media. He's the sitting president, of course, but he's dominated the media for the past 10 years. Bill Clinton wished he was talked about as much as Trump is. Bill Clinton would like to go back to the days of Monica Lewinsky when everyone talked about him. Like they're both attention whores. But, you know, Trump is winning it.
The Trump letter is just BS fake news. Luckily, I have a direct line to the vice president because the guy spends a lot of time on Twitter, or X. So
Look at this pie-faced lesbian go.
Asked him. So this is probably fake too, right, J.D. Vance? The whole thing made up, or maybe just the Trump part? I'm losing the thread a little, I gotta say.
Boom.
The contention is that the book is entirely fake, or Trump being a contributor is fake, or all that is real, but someone created a totally fake Trump letter and then stuck it in the real book. Now,
Which, again, that's the only explanation. Because the book exists. They know it exists. There's all this evidence that exists. It's a weird fucking book. Like this, just being a part of a weird book like that. But Trump's letter is really fucking creepy and really fucking weird. And so the only explanation is somebody wrote a fake Trump letter and she stuck it in the book. But that wouldn't happen because Trump and him were pals. And Jeffrey Epstein, would be bummed at her. It's like it didn't happen. But that would be the only way that it would be fake, so it's a real letter. It was fucked up.
to his credit, the VP, who sort of holds open office hours over there on X, decided to engage with my questions with a lengthy response. Quote, the contention, which is pretty clear if you just read what I said, is that it's bogus for the Wall Street Journal to publish a hit piece without showing us the letter.
I have no idea if the book exists. Wall Street Journal won't show it to us. Wall Street Journal won't show it to us. Did I say something else? I have no idea if the letter exists. Wall Street Journal won't show it to us. What I find absurd is the idea that Donald Trump was writing poems to Epstein, and finding it equally absurd that the American paper would attack the President of the United States without revealing the basis for the attack. But if it is happening, then that absurdity is that Donald Trump should fucking go, right? Because it's fucked. Like, you're making it sound like that it's so horrible, it's so fucking absurd. But Donald Trump would totally do this because they were fucking butt buddies, right? We all know what's going to happen. They're going to dribble the details out for a few days and weeks in an effort to assassinate the president. And he might read this too. I don't think so. But president's character. They won't show us the book or allow us to refute it until they've wrung every bit of fake news out of the story. And everyone will just move on from the fact that the Wall Street Journal is acting like a Democratic super PAC. It's disgraceful. And that's why the president sued. Well, not if the letter's real. Then none of those things you said is true, right? And the book is true, and so the letter's real. So fucking, that means Trump's fucking weird as shit, and Trump is totally Jeffrey Epstein's butt buddy and fucking the Perv Bros, and so like should be held accountable, but he won't. And you'll just keep on lying. This is what I was talking about in the audio in the beginning. They just lie. Like J.D. Vance knows this is true. J.D. Vance knows this letter's true. He knows Trump and Epstein's are buddies. They all know. They know Trump's name's all over the list. They know all that Trump is as complicit and as partaking as much as anybody else with Jeffrey Epstein. And he's a fucking pedo, and they're fucking covering for his fucking pedo ass, right? Because J.D. Vance's career is tied to Trump not being, burned on this. And so they're willing to lie for a fucking pedo, just like they were willing to lie for fucking Joe Biden, who was a groper and molester and sexual abuser of kids. You can see that just in the public stuff that he did. These are creepy motherfuckers, and they're willing to lie for him. And Chris Hayes was willing to lie for Joe Biden, and J.D. Vance is willing to lie for Trump. Two pedos they're willing to lie for. That's why it's fucked. Like, what do you need? What more do you need to see about the system, right? Like, it's that fucked.
I have no idea if the book exists. Wall Street Journal won't show it to us. I have no idea if the letter exists. Wall Street Journal won't show it to us. What I find absurd is the idea that Donald Trump was writing poems to Epstein, and I find it equally absurd.
I didn't need to read it, but let's go with it here.
That a major American paper would attack the president of the United States without revealing the basis for the attack. We all know.
Okay, so he's saying the issue is they're not showing you the letter. I mean, again, I already read this, but I mean, like, that's worse than the letter. Well, you're saying that if they showed you the letter, you wouldn't have a problem with it, or you wouldn't call it fake. Of course you would. I mean, and you're never going to admit it's real, and you're never going to admit that Trump and him are besties because you're a piece of shit, right?
What's going to happen? They're going to dribble little details out for days or weeks in an effort to assassinate the president's character. They won't show us this book or allow us to refute it until they've wrung every bit of fake news out of the story. And everyone will just move on from the fact that WSJ... Okay,
when it is shown, are you going to say Trump's a piece of shit and it's got to go? You're not going to do that. Just like when Joe Biden became, when he finally admitted he had fucking dementia, which was really Parkinson's, and Chris Hayes and these people didn't say shit about that. Because they don't want to lose their credibility for backing somebody who's a complete piece of shit pedo, right?
Is acting like a Democrat super PAC. It's disgraceful, and it's why the president sued. Now, I have to say, On at least one point, I agree with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. As I said, quote, in point of fact, the contention isn't about journalistic process, and the lawsuit certainly isn't. Trump called the letter fake and sued for defamation. Like you, I'd love to see the book produced, which I think is what you're calling for. We're in agreement. What's more, if you find it absurd that Donald Trump is writing cryptic poems and lewd sketches to Jeffrey Epstein, I really suggest you do a little Googling about your boss.
Do a little Googling.
I'm still waiting for a response to that one. But that relationship between Trump and Epstein is what makes part of Vance's response so telling. When he talks about folks dribbling little details out about the relationship, that's because there are a lot of details to dribble.
No. Look at this pie-faced lesbian. Get in there, motherfucker. Get fucking in there. Show off that fucking pie lesbian face. And be proud of it. Stick that motherfucker out there. Stick that motherfucker right in. Stick that money maker right into the camera and spout pie-faced lesbian shit. You're out doing like Rachel Maddow here. I forgot what I was going to say to that. What did he say? Oh, the dribbling is what they do when they want to burn somebody, right? Because they have all the information, and they just give you small doses. And why do they do that? They want to keep the story going, and so they're certainly fucking Trump here, the Wall Street Journal, and everyone else. Now, all of a sudden, these guys are covering Epstein. Although just because you're on the list doesn't mean that you're guilty. This is like the things that they stick under YouTube's videos and things, these qualifying statements. Just because you're on the list doesn't mean you're guilty, you know, this kind of bullshit. You know, like I said, the whole thing's just a joke, but these are horrible fucking people that are, you know, demonic. All of them, one extent or another. They've sold themselves for, you know, they're willfully lying and gaslighting their audiences across the board, all of them, where they will not report the truth and they will embellish their lies and manufacture reality just to keep the thing going, right? And when they want to burn somebody, they let it out a little bit at a time. This is a CIA tactic. They have day one information. When they have a story, like they have some kind of shooter or somebody or some kind of false flag thing, they roll out the information like, you know, like a 9/11 that the passport, they found a passport of one of the fucking, remember the hijacker? They found the passport on the fucking street. And then they just roll out the information, developing the story. You know, what's a good example of this was that guy Luigi Mangione who shot that guy, remember? And I explained it when it was happening. Day one, they have a package of information they release to the media. Day two, they have a package of information they release to the media. And they keep the story going for a week or two because that's what they want to do. And with Trump, this might go on for a good period of time because they could have released this shit before this thing took off. How long have they had this information? Do you think they're just doing research now and finding it? No, they have all of it. And they release a little bit of a time, and Trump reacts, and then they fuck him over with a second release of more information. Like Trump says it's fake, and then they release the information that, well, the book is real, and here's the book, and here's this other bits of stuff. And then they just keep the thing going because they want you to talk about it. They want, whether it's a distraction from what Israel's doing, because Israel's getting burned by this too because of the Mossad aspect of it. And so that's what, you know, that's why that happens.
The guys were associates. They were friends. They were close. They both had reputations for their behavior with women dating back years. It's why you see this video of the two men leering at women practically every night on this program. The entire relationship between
He's so happy. Look at this guy.
the two guys was out in the open for at least a decade. That's why we reported on this show consistently. Trump went on record with New York Magazine 23 years ago to boast about how Epstein likes young women.
Look at this guy. Here he is with Clinton. Back when Clinton was more powerful and important than Trump. International money man of mystery. That's that quote from Trump was in this thing. And so, you know, Leslie Wexler, Ghislaine Maxwell, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and Chris Tucker, Jeffrey Epstein. These guys are all connected to him. And look, they got the fucking plane in the background. They got the Lolita Express. They didn't even know. This was an article in 2002 before it broke, right? Here's him with pelling out with Clinton. There's these other people here. I don't know who they are, but whatever. They were famous at one point. They're all getting on the fucking Lolita Express, right? Like, look at the thing. Like, I didn't know this international money man of mystery. I'd like to see this whole article. I'll look at it. I have to remember to do that. I'll look at it after I'm done with this thing. And I'm not going to put it in this video. I'll look for future. Anyways.
Somehow the entire Trump administration forgot about that relationship when it decided to make the Epstein files one of the top priorities of this second term. So now, of course, they're desperate to make this go away, even going so far as to dangle a pardon in front of the only person to actually serve real time for Epstein's crimes, his accomplice and fellow abuser of children, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell?
So we saw some of this stuff, but there's been developments here.
Maxwell,
it's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
A lot of people are asking me about pardons. Obviously, this is no time to be talking about pardons. But a lot of people have asked about pardon. This is just not a time to be talking about pardons.
You know, you think that a lot of people want you to do it? Are you shitting me? You make it sound like a lot of people want you to pardon her. Like, they don't want it. They want to see if you're fucking going to do it to make yourself look more guilty, motherfucker. Right? A lot of people are saying do the pardons, but I don't know. I don't think it's time for the pardons yet.
Todd will come back with whatever he's got.
Now, of course, by going out of his way to say he hasn't thought about a pardon, but he's allowed to do it, he's raising the possibility of a pardon. It seemed as though Maxwell's lawyer understood the message.
She literally answered every question. She didn't say, you know what?
You're supposed to defend your client, but his client's Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Look at this motherfucker here.
Don't ask me that. I'm not going to talk about this person. She was asked maybe about 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody.
This is the breathing in the background. Holy shit.
And she didn't hold anything back. We haven't spoken to the president or anybody about a pardon just yet. And listen, the president this morning said he had the power to do so. We hope he exercises that power in the right and just way.
We hope he exercises that power in the right and just way?
You mean, you think it's just that Ghislaine Maxwell gets out of fucking jail? I mean, he's like fucking one of the worst people in the world. At least in terms of this story.
Maybe Maxwell can use some of what she told Trump's personal attorney, now the #2 Department of Justice, to spring herself out of prison where she's serving a sentence for like the systematic predation and assault of girls. It's all just unfathomably cynical and gross. But Trump really wants to move on from this story, for everyone to forget about his relationship with Epstein.
You make it a very big thing over something that's not a big thing. You should be talking about, if you're going to talk about that, talk about Clinton, talk about the former president of Harvard, talk about all of his friends, talk about the hedge fund guys that were with him all the time. Don't talk about Trump.
Don't talk about Trump. This is great. This is a great moment. That's why I'll show you. Don't talk about Trump.
All of his friends, talk about the hedge fund guys that were with him all the time. Don't talk about Trump. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are.
I'm not focused on conspiracy theories. That's what Trump just said. I'm not focused on conspiracy. This is what this motherfucker just said. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories. Well, you were when you went and embraced the fucking Cubies, you piece of shit. You were when you started talking about the deep state and these things that favored you, pretending to go along with it, you fucking lying piece of sack of shit, you, right? But now I don't believe in conspiracy theories. Using it as a weapon, it's a weapon that's been used against the truth community. Now he's using it. Now that the conspiracy is about him and Jeffrey Epstein being perv bros, which we all know to be true, right?
His friends, talk about the hedge fund guys that were with him all the time. Don't talk about Trump. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are. I mean, I watch you people. It's so sad. You ought to talk about the success of our country instead of this nonsense that you talk about.
Which is that you and Jeffrey Epstein were best fucking besties. And that you fucking, even when you claim that you burned the guy, it was for being creepy. You won't say what the creepy behavior was because that would implicate you in your hotel in sexual abuse. And that you didn't go to the police. You just banned Jeffrey Epstein. And the only reason you really banned him is because it was 2007 In 2006, he was being indicted and investigated, and you knew that you were going to be implicated in doing the shit that he did. So you'd cut ties with him. And then when you ran for president, you could say, I banned him. You know, I banned the guy after 20 years of fucking depravity with my fucking bro there, right? His perv bro. You know, I banned him. No, you didn't. You have only after he got burned and you threw him under the bus like you do all your friends.
Over and over again.
However the president tries to spin this, the facts are the facts. And I agree with J.D. Vance. We are on the same page on this. The facts should come out.
Boom. All right, so that was great. You know, like you're never going to get to the bottom of this, but you already have. Trump is the bottom of this thing. When you reach the bottom of Jeffrey Epstein, you find him and Trump together. The Perv Bros. Okay, greetings, brothers. Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is hilarious. So I said yesterday or today, this morning, today's Friday the 25th of July. In the video I made yesterday or today that's going to be up yesterday for you, which will be tomorrow, Saturday for me, I talked about how this press conference I watched this morning, where Trump says, I was asked if he'd pardoned Ghislaine. I was going to start with that, and I have that next. But this is even better. So this starts off here.
And they're going to have to clean it up. You're going to have to get rid of it.
What are you hoping Todd Vance gets out of his meetings with Ghislaine Maxwell?
So just to be clear, Trump's lawyer that defended him in multiple cases, a real scumbag, and then Trump put on a Department of Justice to be his personal lawyer, is now, you know, trying to strike a deal with Ghislaine Maxwell because Trump has the ability to pardon her in any number of things, and or Jeffrey Epstein her, if she's even really in jail, even if she really exists. But that's the official story. And so the guy isn't trying to get information that would incriminate Trump out of him, right? Which, you know, the people, the Democrats, particularly in the committee that's wanting to interview her, are concerned about because she's striking a deal with him. And, you know, he's asked what to do about her. And this is the funniest fucking answer ever.
Well, I don't know about the meeting. I know it's taking place, and
I don't know about the meeting. I don't know, but hey, I don't know. Like, his whole thing is I don't know. Like, he says I don't know all the time. Like, that's his big, you know, he thinks he's doing, you know, he's got this blanket immunity as president, but he's still doing all this, you know, whatever they call that. Whatever they call, I'm still suffering, not suffering, but I'm enjoying the effects of the gathering. I'm a little bit out of it. Plausible deniability. And so, I don't know. I don't know about the meeting.
he's a fantastic man. He's a great attorney. And people should really focus on how well the country's doing, or they should focus.
So now he starts telling you what you should focus on. Like, this is the arrogance of this prick. And this is what Trumpers never understood. He doesn't give a shit about you and your opinions. And you're just a fucking, like a cog in the wheel to him, like you are to, you know, everybody else in the world. I mean, that's how everyone thinks about everybody else, right? That's why, you know, people yell at their waitress or, yell at their employees, and, you know, everyone's just there to serve them. That's the selfishness that we exist in. And Trump's the worst at that. Like, at least the worst public figure at this. Now he's going to tell you what you should focus on. Not what you care about, not what is important to you, not that you have a sovereign opinion. This is what you guys should focus on. Let me lead my list.
Focus on the fact that Barack Hussein Obama led a coup, or they should focus on the fact that Larry Summers from Harvard, that Bill Clinton, who you know very well, and lots of other friends, really close friends of Jeffrey Summers, should be spoken about. Because, you know, Jeffrey Epstein should be spoken about. And they should speak about them, because they don't talk about them. They talk about me. I have nothing to do with the guy.
So you were friends for 20 years, bro. You've said that you were friends for 15 years in 2002, and then 5 more years until you kicked him out of your club, where he used for recruiting girls. But, like, first of all, it's the arrogance for him to say, guess what? This is what you guys should think about, not what you want to think about. This is what you guys should care about, not what you want to care about, what I think you should care about. you just exist as like everybody else is, a cardboard figure, and I'm the only real person. Like you guys are all NPCs, and I'm the only person that matters in the whole universe. I mean, that's like fucking his arrogance. But he's so stupid about it because, all those people have superficial, I don't know what kind of evidence they have. They might have some evidence, right? We don't know. We'll never know. But in terms of what we do know, anybody who's on an Epstein list or flight log, or went to the island, they're all, suspect, but there's not, just because they were hung out with a guy doesn't mean that they were pedos, at least in terms of proof, right? But if he's going to start saying, you guys should all look at these people who had contact with Epstein and not me, and that they're guilty by association, then he's even more guilty by association, right? And he's saying everyone, you should look at everybody but me. Well, that's too late, bro. Like, you're the number one person. I've said this is your fucking, you own this thing now, right? Because you were friends with him the longest. You said the thing about him being terrific. And now you're fucking the guy blocking the truth from coming out. And the people who voted for you are like feeling betrayed. And you own that thing. Don't focus on me. Focus on them. They also had superficial contact with him. So they're guilty, but I'm not. Right? So he's just burying himself, the dumb fuck, right?
Are you considering
Easy.
do you do any business deals with the UK?
Yeah, I'm going to meet with the Prime Minister right now. We're going to be over there in about 6 hours. We're meeting with the Prime Minister tonight. We're going to be talking about the trade deal that we made and maybe even improve it.
Are you considering clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell? Are you considering clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell, sir?
So they were asking about Ghislaine Maxwell, and he walked away so that they would be out of camera shot. That question wouldn't be him ignoring it, right?
Right outside the gates of the White House. Are you concerned about that?
I think it's terrible, and we'll have them removed immediately. We do remove it. We've got to get the mayor to run this city properly. This city has to be run. I have the right to take it over, and I think it's terrible. Where are they? Where did you see them?
Right outside on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Near the Treasury.
Right across the Mafia Park near the Treasury. Have you heard about Todd Vance's interview with Ghislaine Maxwell?
Are you still disappointed in President Trump's
Pardon or clemency for Ghislaine
Well,
Maxwell?
I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to say is that Todd is a great attorney, but you ought to be speaking about Larry Summers. You ought to be speaking about some of his friends.
He's telling the media who they should cover, and they're telling the people out there what they should care about. And that's not your fucking job, right? Like, that's the opposite of democracy. People want to know about fucking Jeffrey Epstein, and you're withholding information. You're blocking it. And you're fucking on the list, bro. You're the list, right? You're the only one who fucking matters. This is your fucking story. And he's just, he's fucking panicked and shook, and he's just trying to fucking, find ways to deflect, right?
Hedge fund guys, they're all over the place. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island.
I never went to the island. So, if you didn't go to the islands because you were fucking being served in his offices and you're fucking Mar-a-Lago, right? That doesn't mean shit. Like, just because they went to the island, you didn't. And we don't even know he went to the island. He's a fucking liar. This is just great. So let's go to the other thing here. So then they got this up pretty quick. I knew they would because I was watching. I'm like, oh, I wanted to include it in my last video, but the video was already almost done. And so I said, well, I'll just wait. It'll be up in an hour.
President Trump speaking to reporters over at the White House just before leaving for his trip to Scotland. I want to go right to our senior White House reporter, Kevin Liptak. Kevin, you've been listening to what the president had to say.
Right here.
Who is down in Tallahassee. In a bid to kind of Maxwell will have to kind
of just show the fucking thing. Here he goes. All right, boom.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell?
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell? And this is what Trump says.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something.
Okay, it's something you've thought about constantly for the past so many days. That's an outlet. Something I haven't thought about? What, are you fucking shitting me? Like, you're avoiding the shit out of these questions, and now you're trying to tell everyone to look at Bill Clinton. Fucking, there's other shit. Yeah, I bet you want to look at Bill Clinton, but they're not going to. Like, fucking just, Jesus Christ, dude. Just stop talking to the media. I mean, and these things are coming out. They're not dealing with them. They're not even, addressing them. He was with Jeffrey Epstein. They were besties. And, there's no way he didn't know about Jeffrey Epstein's proclivities because he's a creep himself. There's no way he didn't partake because he's a creep himself, right?
I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out, sir?
He said that I haven't thought about it. It's something I'm allowed to do.
I have not thought about it.
You wouldn't rule it out, sir?
Let's go back again. Fuck, I messed it up.
It's really something. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out, sir?
She's shaking her head. Imagine if he pardoned her. I mean, like, if she said a bunch of shit about Bill Clinton and other people, and then he pardons her. Like, he doesn't know how. I mean, he thinks people are stupider than they are. And he's like, I think he's cooked himself. And he just doesn't get it. Like, I don't think he gets it, and he doesn't want to. I think he probably, like, tunes it out when people try to explain it to him. Right?
So you hear the president saying that he hasn't thought about it, but that it is within his power to do that. At another point in this, the president was asked, well, do you think Maxwell's words are really credible, given she clearly seems to be jockeying for some sort of leniency? And the president said that Todd Blanche, the person who is interviewing her down there, that he has an enormous amount of faith in him, that he is a great man, that he kind of knows what he's doing. Remember, Blanche?
Yeah, what he's doing is trying to distance Trump from this. Trump, you can see here, is trying to distance himself from this thing. And he has since the beginning. But he can't. Like, the more he tries to distance himself, and the more shit that's getting leaked, I mean, a lot of it's being leaked by Rupert Murdoch, who Fox News is covering Trump favorably, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, and the Wall Street Journal is fucking kicking the shit out of him. And so, I mean, who's to say why this is happening? Again, like, why is this happening now? Why does the mainstream media care about fucking Jeffrey Epstein all the time, all of a sudden? Like, you always have to ask those questions, like, because it's all show, and there's a reason why, after all this time, it's coming out right now. But Trump is fucking getting fucking rung up, bro. I mean, it's bad. The guy is just a fucking tool. So this just happened.
Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington, where we've had a flurry of developments in the ongoing saga over the Jeffrey Epstein case, even as the White House is desperately trying to force that story off the front page. Just moments ago, the Wall Street Journal reporting that the Justice Department told the president in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files.
Wait, you're going to do a disclaimer?
According to senior administration officials from the Wall Street Journal's report. A White House spokesman called it a, quote, fake story. Now, we should...
It's a fake story. It's a fake story. Anything about Trump is fake news. Anything about Clinton and Obama is real news. That's how it works. It just works that way.
Note that being mentioned in those records is not a sign of wrongdoing.
There's a disclaimer. Just because your name is in the records doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Just because you and Jeffrey Epstein palled around at his island in his plane and in a nursery school. You hung around at schools, like elementary schools with Jeffrey Epstein. Doesn't mean that you did anything wrong.
It comes as President Trump is publicly telling Republicans to use his latest strategy to navigate the MAGA-led uproar over the deceased convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Just deflect. Mr. Trump now making baseless accusations that former President Obama tried to influence the 2016 election as a way to change the subject.
Here it is.
You should mention that every time they give you a question that's not appropriate. Just say, oh, by the way, Obama cheated on the election. You'll watch the camera turn off instantly.
Oh, good strategy. You fucking moron, right? So an inappropriate question is any question about you and Jeffrey Epstein or anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein? That's an inappropriate question? Is that what you're fucking saying? Like, clearly that's his strategy, right? Like, This story is dead already. The story of Obama has already died.
Now, today, the White House doubling down on that strategy, releasing a newly declassified Republican majority report from the House Intelligence Committee from back in 2020 and bringing Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard to today's briefing.
Right, so we saw all that. But, I mean, it's just so fucking bad. Like, he's just so fucking childish. And just so, I mean, I knew he was, like, immature and childish, but holy shit. He's regressing. He's like Benjamin fucking Button, right? Okay, so I completed this video clip, this whole video, and here was a clip. Chris Hayes was covering how South Park was, Trump was, mad about South Park, which just got a $1.2 billion deal to exclusively stream with Paramount. And South Park was mocking him in the first episode. South Park, I don't really like it. It's not funny. I didn't know. My wife and I went to that. We got free tickets to go to that play, whatever it's called, the Mormon play. Didn't find that funny. That basketball movie was okay. The voices on South Park annoy me. I guess there's some funny bits. It's just the characters. I don't like the animation and but I know it's a thing. And they're getting $1.2 billion from Paramount. And Trump was talking. Trump was running it down like his team was being dismissive of how it was. Stuff that's no longer relevant. But if they're getting $1.2 billion to have Paramount be their exclusive streaming service, then there's something there. But they copyrighted, which Paramount does all the time. CBS, they suck at copywriting, so it doesn't matter. The clip isn't funny, and all of it was just bogus. But anyways, there's that clip, like I said, and I edited it out, and now we can just move on and get the video published. They blocked the video because they suck, right? So here's the rest of the stuff here. So Trump here, watch this fucking bullshit, right? So I saw this, my wife and I watched it somehow. Between shows, I turned on like DirecTV, we were watching something, I don't know what happened. And CNN was just on, and it was just a totally random thing. And I'll come back to that, but here's the first part.
About 3.1 billion, went up a little bit. A lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah,
Okay, so they're in the Federal Reserve building. Federal Reserve is a fucked up thing. These Federal Reserve Rothschild banks, the central banks being independent of the federal government of all these countries around the globe, and they're all controlled by Rothschild's bank. With this whole, this is a whole big truther thing, right? The Federal Reserve, the creature from Jekyll Island, this conspiracy of these businessmen, bankers, and politicians all went to Jekyll Island in Georgia, and all the staff left. Like they did this secret deal to create the Federal Reserve, and immediately right after that, the Depression happened because they went to a debt-based usury system, and so it's a fucked up thing, right? And the guy who runs the thing is always a fucked up person. And Trump is pissed at him because he won't lower the interest rates. And he's trying to manipulate him. And he's trying to call him corrupt and wants him to be charged with overspending on $1 billion building that the federal government somehow has to pay for, this $1 billion building, to run a fucking scam bank, right? But Trump is, he pulls out this paperwork. Watch this shit.
About 3.1 billion, went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7
No.
is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah,
Okay, so Trump thinks he's got the receipts.
I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
Now, you're including the Martin renovation. You just added.
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in that third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new.
So we're going to take a look.
Okay, so what happened there is Trump has been saying that the renovations have gone up, but they added something that happened 5 years ago. Because Trump is always using bullshit math, right? Like when Trump makes these claims about other countries screwing America over and why we need tariffs, he always uses Trump math. And the guy just fucking owned him, right? It's a great moment where Trump hands him the document.
You just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
And like Trump just hands it to this other guy who's just randomly Trump's yes man there, like Ms. Vince's Ed McMahon. Trump thought he had the receipts on him.
It was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's not new.
So we're going to take a look.
No, you're not. Like he's just fucking make shit up. Like he's getting owned there. Like because he's adding shit on. Again, $3.1 billion is fuck. Who wants to pay that for the Federal Reserve building? Like what kind of fucking? I mean, do you really need something like that? Right? Just like, do you really need $1 billion fucking plane? You fuck. And $3 billion worth of planes, 2 planes built by Boeing, and the one he's getting for Qatar, costing the American people $4 billion. And then fucking we're going bankrupt, and you motherfuckers are spending lavishly, so fuck you both, right? But Trump being owned by this bullshit math and being a piece of shit, right? So here is MSNBC. We'll get to Aaron Burnett with those two clowns from Wall Street.
But it's not new.
I guess the news there is that Donald Trump got Jerome Powell to wear a hard hat, but the real scoop is that Jerome Powell in real time failed to be humiliated by Donald Trump by putting on his glasses, reading the document Donald Trump pulled out of.
It's just silly. The fucking, it's just performative political theater bullshit. Trump's world is fucking burning from Epstein, right? Let's go to the Aaron Burnett thing.
Sudden it's like, I've had it. All right, let me just play it here again.
So great.
He's right. So then Trump hands the piece of paper. We're playing with. Okay, this is the paper where Trump's like, well, no, I'm going to show you. Right? I got it. Hands it to him. All right, pals, pull out those reading glasses. We've all been there. Yep. Okay. No. Looking, and then he's like, no. Like, I'm sorry. Wait. Okay. You just added a third building. Okay, then he's like, what do I do with this trash? Because he's mad about it. Hands it to Trump, who is mad to be handed it, and then just hands it off to somebody.
His blood pressure is probably going up by the second there. You can see.
These guys are Wall Street guys. It's a fucking clown show. Like, you look at the people who are involved on every level of your fucking show. These are the people in power that have influence. Celebrities, athletes, fucking media people, politicians, whatever it is. Big time religious figures. They're all like fucking clowns and morons, and just like it's a fucking circus, right? Amateur hour. Last year was the year of the amateur, remember? This is the year of the chaos. Amateur hour leads to chaos. So then Trump was asked about Israel and Hamas.
Talk to him about, but it was sort of disappointing, although I told you, I told you, when you get down to those last 20 houses.
Wait, let's go back a little bit more here.
Is there wiggle room in steel and aluminum if they were to budge on digital services tax?
Say it.
Is there any wiggle room on steel and aluminum in exchange for any budge on digital services?
Not a lot, because if I do it for one, I have to do it for all. So on that, steel and aluminum, not a lot.
President, did you speak to Netanyahu about aid drops?
Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
Mr. President, did you speak to Netanyahu about allowing aid drops in Gaza from Arab countries?
Yeah, I speak to him, but I can't tell you what I spoke to him about. But it was sort of disappointing, although I told you. I told you.
I told you and you and you.
When you get down to those last 20 hostages, you get down to that last 10 or 20, it's going to be very hard for Hamas to make a deal because they lose their shield, they lose their cover. We got a lot of them out, a lot of them. We took a lot of bodies out, too. So many of the parents said, please get my son's body back. And we're able to do that. We got a lot of people out, live and people that are not alive. But it was very important to...
What people alive and not alive? You mean dead?
The parents to get their son back, even though they knew their son was dead.
Are you going to be able to get the Open Championship back to Turnberry?
So, you know, the thing with Hamas, you know, Israel's going all in, right? And this stuff is happening while Trump does all this other bullshit and all these other things are being covered. Israel's just fucking going to town out there in the Middle East, right?
These images that are coming out about the humanitarian situation is, in fact, an inflection point.
Why did it take this long? I mean, in November of last year, the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu for the war crime of starvation 8 months ago.
Yeah, so this is what I said. I've been saying this forever. When you do economic sanctions, you kill children. Like it's, you know, going back to Madeleine Albright saying it was worth it that 500,000 children starved in Iraq from economic sanctions. And the same thing with, you know, any of these countries. When you do economic sanctions, what Trump is kind of doing with tariffs, you know, if that happens and these deals are broken, trade deals are broken, you have these small countries that have, you know, very little margin for, you know, they don't have any margin. This happened during COVID, the COVID shutdown. Like all these kids starved that no one even talks about, right? That all these kids starved from the COVID shutdowns. I'll see if I can find any data about that. And so Netanyahu is making it so they have no internet, no water, no food. He's created a blockade around Palestine. It has nothing to do with Hamas. And these families and people are starving. We saw those videos that came out. And now, you know, it's becoming a thing a little bit. But, of course, there's, you know, the Epstein distraction and, I mean, all these things. I don't know if it's a distraction because of this or planned or whatever. But, you know, this is, the humanitarian crisis. This is genocide, right?
4, Israel cut off all food, all water, all electricity into the Gaza Strip for 3 months. And to say the United States is silent, it's much, much worse than that. We are profoundly complicit and deeply responsible. It is our weapons that enforce this starvation. It is our diplomatic efforts that prevent international justice from being done. The blood is on our hands as Americans because it is our weapons that is responsible for those children starving to death.
No blood for the hands of Hamas?
I knew this motherfucker was going to say something. This motherfucker is talking about Hamas. You know, Hamas is a Israeli asset. That's why they're not giving the hostages back. It gives Israel wants fucking Gaza. Everyone knows it. And Trump is letting them take it. And so, you know, if it was another president, probably no. And there hasn't been a president yet that's allowed Israel just to take Gaza. And even Biden was pushing back a little bit. And Kamala Harris was pushing back a little bit in her fucking whatever they call her campaign. But this fucking guy, Scott Jennings, this fucking effeminate piece of shit. What about Hamas? Hamas?
Is there no blood?
No. Why don't you let me finish? How about that? Okay?
I'm just asking.
Yes,
you
of
blame
course.
Israel and you blame the U.S., but we haven't heard Hamas yet.
I actually have one of my closest friends.
Fucking smug fuck.
College was blown up by Hamas. I have probably a lot more experience with suffering from Hamas, with all due respect, than you do. Let's say this. If we want to see who is more to blame for the starvation of children in Gaza, Hamas or Israel, let CNN in. Israel has not allowed Western journalists in since October 7th. Let them go in, let CNN go in, and decide for themselves. How about that?
How about Hamas releases the hostages and gets a ceasefire?
And let me think, what do you think would happen if Hamas...
Smug fuck. You know, so I just went and ate a snack, and I turned on the news, and CNN was covering something to do with Jeffrey Epstein, and MSNBC was covering something to do with Jeffrey Epstein, and Fox News was covering that this generation says hi instead of hello, and so everyone answered the phone. That's how bad fucking Fox News is. And so it's it's just a fucking disaster, right? So the United Nations, that more than 10,000 children more a month could die from virus-linked hunger and malnutrition over the first year of the pandemic. A study published in Lancet and referenced by the UNICEF projected an additional 6.7 million children under 5 could suffer from wasting, a life-threatening form of malnutrition, in low middle-income countries due to the socioeconomic impacts of COVID-19. So, there's hundreds of thousands, millions of people, millions of kids I mean, just from the kids under age 5, you know, when these things happen, kids starve. It's just this. This is what happens. And that's what's happening in fucking Gaza. It's what's probably happening in these other countries. You know, Russia's getting money, they're getting resources from China. So like they made a deal with China because of the stuff that was happening with their sanctions. But a lot of these countries that get sanctioned, or you know, who knows what's going to happen with Trump's fucking bullshit tariffs. And if the trade deals go down and these people can't export their goods and services, there's no margin. It's immediate starvation, right? They have no, you know, nothing stored away. They don't have money. They don't have anything, right? Especially imported stuff as well. A lot of these countries import food. They export their food, import cheaper food. Like their lands are used for growing like coffee, and then they have to import their food. And you know, I mean, this whole thing this happened with the colonization. But you know, I mean, it's like all this suffering that people don't know about. Like I kind of knew about this. I haven't thought about it since COVID. I talked about it briefly, but you know, there's just this kid's starving, and it's a shitty way to die, right? I mean, die starving to death, like over a period of time, watching your kids waste away. And so, you know, I mean, so this is what Israel's doing to the Gaza Strip. Okay, so I did an audio at the beginning of the video, and this audio is also going to go in the Journey series, and it's also going to go elsewhere, like a standalone video at Gratefulness Meditation. I'll put this audio at the end of the video, right? The regular video, and they'll be at the end of everything. All these videos will end with this, with this audio, the Journey Series 1 and the regular video. And so, what I meant to say, and I started talking about this, and I forgot to complete the thought. When I first started Sajmarg, I had such profound experience, like a transformational, huge, experience, and. You know, the gist of it was that the reason for life, there's a joke, like there's a kind of divine joke, and that people on earth all believe that they're materialistic bullshit and all the stuff that they're caught up in and all the, work stuff and family stuff and, personal stuff and ego stuff and goals and ambitions and all these things, right? The famous saying, humans make plans, men make plans, and God laughs. And the real reason for your existence is to do with your soul. And I experienced this in a way that, like, I started to laugh from a deep place during the final sitting of my introduction to the Sajmarg system. Like, I just had this profound experience with it. And I had never believed in anything before. Not passionately, not like on a soul level. And I'd always been the guy who was, sitting in the back of the class making fun of stuff, right? To a couple, to a couple of friends or one friend or something. I was not somebody who was, like motivated person, like an A personality, somebody who wanted to rally people and somebody who was like a, a cheerleader and a, kind of person that would give a pep talk before a basketball game. I wasn't like that kind of guy. Like, get people emotionally fired up. I mean, for the most part, I just didn't, I was the guy on the outside, right? The person circling the fire. I was on the periphery. And so all of a sudden I had something I believed in. And I thought if I told people about it, they would do the Sajmarg system. And I told my family and friends, and I was in a school, like a human service school where you verbalized your opinion, and I brought it to this, these classrooms that were big classrooms where people, were encouraged for critical thinking, my degree in human services. And I talked to everybody I could. And my brother tried only because he said he thought I was in a cult. So, like, I convinced nobody. And it was a real bummer for me. Like, I had this great thing in Sajmarg, and I felt like it was my, I left the third sitting feeling like it was my responsibility to tell everyone about it. And I realized that no matter who I told about it, it didn't matter. Like, it just didn't matter. Because people didn't want to hear it. And I didn't want to hear it. When I first started, I was given I was going to, my ex-girlfriend had found a therapist who was, she had an MSW, but she was also a channeler. She channeled You know, she had gone to this class that I would later go to and learn how to channel, and she was good at it. Like, she was like, you know, she was a real medium. And, you know, I went through therapy, and I learned that my current life at that time was dead, like it was over. But my new life hadn't started, and it wouldn't start till I started Sagemark. And, you know, for 3 months, I hadn't seen the woman in 3 months. You know, I moved out, me and my girlfriend broke up, and I moved away from where the therapist, and we didn't have like a closing session. And I was struggling because, like, you know, I went back to school, and I got some things out of it, but I was kind of miserable because I couldn't go back to my old life, but my new life hadn't started. Like, I was in this transitional period. And I came back in, and I was kind of annoyed by the whole process. And she asked her guides, and they said I should meditate. And she had started Sagemark. Like, she quit. She didn't like it. But she liked it in the beginning. She did for about 6 months. And she handed me a piece of paper with the stuff about the Sagemark meditation. I'm like, what's this? Because I tried to meditate before. I'd done some yoga to improve my basketball. You know, I'd taken a few different yoga classes. And I was like, what's this? It's like silly. I don't want to meditate like fucking, I was like bummed, right? And then 3 months later, I picked up the piece of paper. I had a desk, and I was writing a book, and, a book that's not worth reading, but it was my first attempt. And I put it on the desk, and it just sat there for like 3 months. And one day I picked it up, and it was around this time of year. It was on August 3rd, right before then, like August 1st or something. And I picked it up, and it said something about the heart, and I felt vibrations in my heart while I was reading it. So I said, oh, there might be something here to it. But I rejected it at first, right? I didn't want to hear it. And if somebody had said what I'm saying now, I wouldn't have listened. And so, like, I'm not bummed about when other people don't listen because, nobody wants to hear about meditation or about looking inside or changing yourself and things like that. People want to, something, it doesn't appeal to people's egos. They want to hear something better, right? They want to hear that they're the chosen one, or, they want to hear some kind of prophecy that, where they're great and, you're going to do great things and not, you have to do hard work and meditate, look inside and build your character and change who you are as a person. Nobody wants to hear that shit. So I'm not, you're selling something that people don't want. But there are people who listen to me here and, people in my life or whatever, but it's not enough to convince people to do spirituality. Like, let's say I'm an influencer. Let's say people who really believe in what I say. Now, if I sold them something, if I sold you guys something, or just talked about something else, you get a higher level of people participating. If it was some kind of products, I mean, I've sold more merch probably than I have in terms of influencing people to try the meditation, right? And so no matter how many times I'm right, no matter how many times people see that there's something special about this show and insightful, and I attribute it to the Sagemark meditation, Gratefulness meditation, it still won't matter, right? Like, people just don't want to do it because, that's the problem with human beings, because you have a soul's path. You have an internal process in which your soul wants to connect to God. You can't live without connection to God. Everybody craves love. Love in its purest form is God. And people want to be loved, and they want to feel love in their hearts. I mean, if you've had your heart broken, somebody's misused you, abused you because you loved them, you loved them, but they didn't love you back, and you have trust issues. I mean, people get damaged, but deep down, you have a soul that craves love, and without love, you can't exist. There's prana, there's love energy in your system, and everybody needs it. It's the fundamental building block, but it's very subtle, and it's not like food, it's not like sex, it's not like anything that has pleasure attached to it. It's not anything that has, like regular pain attached to it, where you feel pain and you want to do anything to make the pain go away. And love doesn't, isn't solve that problem. When you have physical pain or emotional pain, it does, but on a very subtle level. So, you're taking something that has no sensory stimulation. Love has no sensory stimulation. It stimulates your heart in a way that, true love, not pleasure. Not love that's associated with pleasure, but, love enhances everything. Love makes everything better. but love in itself doesn't have any characteristics. It doesn't have anything that you would be addicted to, right? You can get addicted to the feeling of love in your heart, but not really addicted. Like it's a craving, and it just feels right. But for most people, they don't want to feel that because they want to feel the lower level pleasures and pain, drama, and bullshits. Lower level, more, more non-subtle, more aggressive, more flagrant, more, whatever, more, louder and more stimulating. So people want stimulation, and especially now with kids growing up with the internet. And so love is subtle, and they don't want it. They don't want God. But it's your reason for existence, and it's why your soul is here, and why you have why you have a physical body to better experience something with, other things that pull you away from it. Like when you are able to focus on your spiritual goal with all the distractions, all the stimulation, all the pleasures, all the everything that's in material life. But, going back to what I was saying in the first part of the video, people just don't want it. Like people don't, you're talking to people about something that they're going to reject and not pursue. And as soon as they start pursuing it, they're looking for a reason not to do it. They're looking for any excuse to quit. And I've seen this over the years. And so as long as that's the case, humanity's doomed. Because it's the pursuit of the divinity within you, a connection to the divinity within you, that makes people evolve and ennobles people in a way where they are all these problems and all this drama that we so much love, right? Remember from the Matrix movie, the second Matrix movie, where the character called the Architect, which was interesting from a Freemasonic perspective because they worship the great architect, is talking to Neo and saying, it's actually the first Matrix where the Smith character is talking to Morpheus, and he says, we made a utopia when they built you have all these people that are being used as batteries, right? And energy's being sucked off of them, but they need to have their mind stimulated or they die. So they built this invisible, artificial world called the Matrix. And he said the first Matrix was, divine. It was heavenly. And you guys rejected it. You guys, you wanted drama. You wanted bullshit. So we had to make it flawed and dirty and gross, and because that's what you guys wanted, right? And so that's the current state. And people want drama. They want, this bullshit stuff about justice or whatever. They want focused on other people. They want to feel hate. They want to feel angry. They want to feel fear. They want to watch horror films. They want to, this is what people aspire to. They don't want the subtle energy of God that is all pervading, and to live in a peace and harmony with everything and everybody. And as long as that's the case, you'll have the world that you have now. And you don't have any bullshit excuses to fall back on because it's, you're choosing this, right? You're choosing the fucking drama. You're choosing the low stuff. You're not embracing your higher nature. And everybody who does that has no excuse. There's no victim consciousness. There are people who embrace their higher nature and they live in a service of the divine, and they're free from all the bullshit. It's just peripheral stuff that they pay no attention to. The deeper the more stuff that's outside, that's abhorrent that they see, it just drives them deeper into their internal world. And they're pretty oblivious to the state of the world. I mean, they see it, but they're not, it doesn't matter because all they see is God everywhere they look. And so, that's the beauty of spirituality. And everybody has to come to it on their own choice, by their own accord, when they choose. But as long as this system exists, people will find a way to distract themselves from making that choice, the majority of people. And, blessed are the ones that choose it, even with all the distractions and bells and whistles that are going off in front of them. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.